Hello, Froggy here, and today I'll be showing you how to get to the Sanctum of the Brood Queen from Patrol. That's where you fight Savathun at the end of the campaign. I'm getting a lot of requests for a guide on how to do that. I'm sure that Sparrow will be fine. Or not. So I'm going to end up wanting to do a fair bit of stasis climbing to get up. I'm just swapping over to my stasis gear. I went up here in a previous video, but for the sake of completeness, I'll go ahead and include the little jumping route here as well. You can jump on the top of these doorways, which helps give you a better vantage point to jump up to the next bit. You don't need any stasis climbing at all until you get to the top. It is very convenient that there are all those little platform things. Sadly, the elevator here doesn't work on Patrol, so we're going to have to climb up and do a small amount of stasis climbing. If you're disappointed about that, don't worry, there will be a lot of stasis climbing in a moment. Gotta switch off the Orchid. It isn't the best for shooting a lot of crystals. Infinite ammo on kinetics is quite nice. With the climbing setup that I use, you just have to break 2 crystals if you wait for the recharge each time. And if you mess up, you can just flop down a shield and get a bit of bonus energy. Unfortunately, Kickstart still doesn't work unless you're not gaining too much grenade energy. Otherwise, it'll not see you as being empty and just won't trigger. And we're at the top. I always get a little mixed up at this part here. And here we go. The area from the trailer. So now we just need to get right up there. It's not all that difficult. We can't summon sparrows, but we can climb. So we're just going to sword fly up there. To do this, you're going to need to do some reasonably precise sword flying. It's kind of like long distance sword flying, except instead of going for distance, you're going for height. You can regain all of the height that you lose while sword flying, as long as you give yourself ample time to recharge your jump. Just getting as high as we can at the beginning here. Should be a ledge right up. Yep, here we go. This should be good enough. Now we just got to fly over. Unfortunately, the ceiling does lower a fair bit, so we will have to drop a lot of height at the beginning. See, I get pushed down a fair bit there. And now we just need to get all that height back. I would recommend practicing this next to a cliff that you can see, so you can easily tell if you're making progress. You want to see the entirety of the initial boost, and then give yourself time to have it recharge. Almost at the top. You can actually climb up on the inside or outside here. The inside is perhaps a little more natural feeling. As you can see, if I wait for the regeneration to go back down, Kickstart gives me the full effect. It does take quite a few grenades. If you bring a buddy, you can actually trade off who's throwing to go about twice as fast. going to speed through this stasis climbing gear. Once you get into a rhythm, it doesn't really feel all that different from this. Of course, it takes a bit longer. Stasis climbing is very convenient, but it's not very time efficient. I prefer to just get by with climbing if it's at all possible. Or small amounts of sparrow flying. But I certainly lack the skills to sparrow fly up a narrow pillar like this. And we're at the top. So one thing that you may have tried is jumping into this large pendulum. It turns out the same thing that protects you from fall damage will also protect you from physics damage. So if we jump into this and use our melee, it won't hurt us at all. In fact, it can kind of push you on top of the ceilings over there. I would recommend playing around with that. It's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, the bridge isn't here, so I'm afraid there's nothing we can do. Ha, ha, ha. Except for just swordplay. I just swapped onto Jagged so that I can regain ammo after I die if I'd like to. But we should have more than enough for this. And here we are, the boss arena. Unfortunately, I haven't found a way out of map here yet. If you find one, I would be very interested in knowing, because it would be nice to get to that mirror dimension down there. Thanks to some work from Salvo, we were able to confirm that it is there and that there is likely a funnel directly below the mirror. I was messing around with Bach to try to see if we could get over there and see the extents of the mirror dimension, but sadly we weren't able to get underneath this island. Maybe at some point. Of course, if we did take the funnel, we would just find ourselves on top of a solid shell, just like the other one. But hopefully at some point we'll manage to get inside of it. If only we had a viable IRB. Just going to swap back to higher ammo there to generate sword ammo. I cut out a few deaths, but it would eventually get you back up to 70. You can get out of map on this side. It's actually very straightforward. It turns out the walls to the side are not terribly wall-like at all. You can just pass right through them. Unfortunately, when you get over here, there are a fair amount of death barriers. We can go above them. I'm just going to go off to the left here. Quite make that. So around here is where you would end up if you climbed up the outside of the tube instead of the inside. Use a little bit of stasis to help climb up here. In general, I wouldn't recommend the fighting line for breaking the crystals you're standing on, but you know, hard to resist doing that occasionally. Got this little slanted bit of land, and this very Swiss cheese-like ground underneath the initial battle area. It would be nice if we could just continue underneath the water where we sword flew across before. But unfortunately, there is a death barrier. If we go pretty much any lower than where we're standing right now, we will just immediately die, as this corner demonstrates. the same sort of thing here as well. If we find a gap in the death barrier, then we might be able to get to where we suspect the funnel is. It would also be very nice if we could simply fly underneath the kill barrier. But as you can see here, there are pushbacks preventing that, and if you ride the pushbacks upwards, it'll eventually take you into the death barrier. There is one other neat thing I'll show you before heading out though. If we go back down and kind of steer away from the outside of the tube, we can actually skip the load. This puts us in a kind of unloaded Court of Thorns. A little bit less detail, but it is solid. Walk on this lower part and can't quite make it down there because there is another death barrier in the way. Would be neat to be running around on that part. But that'll be it for now. Hopefully we'll find a nice way to get into these mirror dimensions. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy coming up here whenever you feel like a little bit of stasis climbing.